Hey there, Geminis. Welcome to my channel. My name is Isaac. We're going to get into your tarot card reading for the month of September 2024. So let's go ahead and shuffle up these cards. Um, so I've been doing readings. This is a brand new channel. I've posted a series of astrology videos last week, but other than that, it's brand new. So any interaction you want to give here can definitely boost the channel. Likes, subscribe, dislike, comment, all that stuff. I've been doing readings probably professionally for roughly the last 10 years or so. And to be quite honest, I'm really tired of talking about soulmates and twin flames and ex-boyfriends and all that stuff. So these readings will likely not revolve around that kind of stuff. Sometimes if it comes up, it comes up. But if you're looking for that, there's plenty of that stuff on YouTube already. You can find it. You've probably seen it already. But if you're more interested in things like spiritual evolution and I like to say that I think of the tarot as a spiritual diagnosis tool rather than anything else, um, rather than a fortune telling device. If you're into that, then maybe you'll enjoy this. So let's see what we've got for you, Gemini. So first of all, we got the Page of Swords, Princess of Swords, whatever, same thing. The Tower. Bum bum bum. The Tower. Four Swords. Eight of Swords. A lot of swords. Two of Wands. The Wheel of Fortune. And Three of Swords. And the Six of Cups. Maybe in future videos, if this channel takes off, I'll buy a better camera and I can actually show you the cards as I'm going. But this is a low budget operation right now, so this is what I've got. So, to start off with, what's going on the surface of your life right now? We have Princess of Swords and the Tower. This, to put it simply, is the universe coming and kind of giving you a blow to the ego. But the Tower usually is the crumbling of some aspect of the conditioned ego. The person that you were conditioned to be from birth, from culture, your parents, all these belief systems, and patterns and emotions and traumas that have been handed to you, usually before you were even old enough to know what was going on at all, because you're just a little kid learning from your environment. Human beings develop a personality around those things, that conditioning, as a matter of survival, and it's just sort of what we do. It's nature. However, that sort of childhood adapted survival mechanism stops being so effective as an adult, especially if you have a lot of trauma, if you went through like a difficult childhood. The things that you had to develop, the personality traits you had to develop in order to navigate and survive that situation, might be kind of maladaptive when you become an adult and interact with other adults out in the world. And it's kind of hard to get rid of this on our own. So we kind of need the help of the universe, higher beings, higher intelligence, consciousness, angelic beings, whatever you want to call them, higher dimensional energies that are intelligent, whatever they may be. We kind of need their help in order to do this whole spiritual journey. Maybe that's why it's called spirituality. Spirits. You need to. It involves working with spirits, entities, beings, or spirit itself as a whole. The one divine consciousness that is everything. So, anyways, there's a piece of this conditioned entity, this ego, that's being sort of chipped away at by the universe. You probably just recently came through, or maybe you're in right now, a pretty turbulent situation, something that's kind of like you would rather not be going through. That's got you feeling pretty upset. But underneath the surface, what's really happening is that there's a certain agitation within you that is being calmed. It might not seem like that at first, but what's happening is you're being forced to let go of a certain aspect of your sense of self, which can be scary, right? Because it's like, oh God, it's me. I'm losing a piece of myself. I'm dying. You're not dying. You're not really losing a piece of yourself either. Not your real self, just the false self that was created by default based on your circumstances. But we think that's what we are. So when that starts to fall apart, you start to freak out and think it can literally feel like dying sometimes. So if you're feeling like that, if you feel like if you're having like panic attacks, or if you're having like a lot of frustration or just anxiety in general, there's something moving and working through you that ultimately leads to a greater sense of peace by forcing you to work through a belief system, which in this context really I think comes down to just learning to stop thinking about a certain thing. I don't know what that certain thing might be specifically, but as a Gemini, you guys are thinkers. And historically, my experience with Gemini is that you guys tend to have a hard time turning that brain off. Um, and in fact, it can even get to a point where you start to take pride in your intelligence because you think so much and you're a very intelligent person naturally that you can start to take pride in that. In fact, as I'm saying this, that's kind of what's coming to me is that maybe this is what's being worked through right now is that you get put into a situation that you can't solve. Maybe there's no solution. Sometimes the universe, if you think you're a smart person, which many of us do, I'm guilty of this all the time. You think you're so smart, but then the universe comes and puts you in a situation. It's like, okay, solve this. And then you try, and it doesn't work. You try this, it's still not working. And nothing you do seems to have any impact on the situation whatsoever. And then that can start to make you feel like, oh God, my primary mechanism for dealing with life isn't working. What the hell do I do now? And so there could be kind of some panic. And really, with this Four of Swords and this Eight of Swords, the Four of Swords is like rest, relaxing, stopping. It's a mental quietude. So things like meditation. And, you do have the ability to stop thinking. Maybe not for long stretches of time, because that takes a while to develop, because you have all this momentum going on that's backed up by all sorts of emotions. But you do, it's almost like a muscle that people have forgotten that they have. Uh, and I can't really tell you how to do it. The same way I can't tell you how to open and close your hand. You just do it. You just know how to do it. It's natural. It's part of you. It's the same thing with this. Your mind, you have the ability to control your mind the same way. And I can't really tell you exactly how to do it. You have to just learn how to do it. And there's no other way to learn how to do it. And you have to kind of work this little muscle. And that's kind of what meditation really is. But you don't have to sit down on a cushion with your eyes closed and focus on your breathing. I know a lot of people, especially fast thinkers like Geminis, they get really turned off by by that word meditation because like, oh, I can't meditate. My mind just goes, I hate it. It just goes all over the place. Well, that's kind of the reason why you need to do it is because it's going all over the place. Meditation is a slow process where you slowly work that muscle uh, and learn how to stop, learn how to shut up inside for a while. And then suddenly you start to find that when you do that, all of a sudden you start to feel peaceful, you start to feel better. And that, oh my God, maybe all these problems in my head are actually just that. They're in my head. And when I stop thinking about them, I realize they don't actually exist. A lot of it has to do with stuff that has not happened or might not ever happen or happened a long time ago and you can't do anything about it now. So you're kind of being backed into a corner here where the universe is like, it's time to learn how to stop. It's time to learn to be quiet. And sometimes, the universe can be pretty brutal. We always talk about like this love and light kind of stuff, and the sort of spirituality itself kind of gets this reputation of being all rainbows and kittens and unicorns. But the universe, think of the planet Mars. This describes an aspect of creation, an aspect of all that is, and it's the sword, that cuts things away. It cuts away that which is no longer necessary or useful, so that things can keep growing. It's just like when you mow your lawn, or like if you have like a bonsai tree and you trim it so that it grows. Like if you don't cut away the excess, then new growth can't come in. And cutting things, and the universe does have this sort of aspect to it that can be brutal and merciless. And it's not mean. It's not trying to just hurt you for no reason. It's got a good reason for doing what it does, but it can be hardcore. It's not always gentle. A lot of times, especially if you get really deep into all the spiritual stuff, the universe, it turns up the volume little bit, little bit, little bit until eventually you're like, I can't handle anymore. And then it goes a little bit farther and you find out, okay, well, you can handle a little bit more. And in fact, you kind of had to be pushed beyond your limits in order to recognize those limits and be able to have the motivation to want to learn how to do this internal work where you have to face your emotions, face your fears, learn to gain control out of this spiraling supercomputer of a brain that you have. And usually it starts out gentle. The universe will come and it'll nudge you at first, but usually we ignore it. We ignore it. We ignore it. And it gets a little harsh, a little more harsh. And then you're like, oh, okay, but you still don't really get it until eventually it comes and like just kicks you in the ass and knocks down your sandcastle to kind of show you something, you know? Um, Funny enough, I feel like a lot of you may not really take this advice, even if you're watching this video with this Two of Wands and the Wheel of Fortune. You probably will just, even if you're agreeing with what I'm saying right now, later on, it's very likely something will come over you where you're going to be like, well, it's time to try even harder. I'm going to start trying to control things even harder. Be really determined and dedicated and force the world to be the way I want it to be so that I can feel safe, so I can finally relax. But unfortunately, I don't really see that working very well. Um, because one way or the other, you are going to deal with this Three of Swords, this sorrow, this internal pain, which swords are thinking. And if you look at it, the swords are piercing the heart. You're stabbing you're stabbing yourself in the heart with your own thoughts and controlling your environment and making stuff happen the way you want it to happen is not going to make that stop. It's just going to make you have a more comfortable environment where you can continue to torture yourself. And so the universe is getting a little tired of our human tendency to keep ignoring it. So it's been kind of getting, I kind of just when I just tap into that sort of like higher mind, it's kind of I get this sort of like, all right, it's about time now, guys. Like little humans on Earth, like we've done this game long enough. It's about time to start really getting over the past is what it really is. Gaining control over your internal awareness, expanding spiritually beyond this chattering ego. Because if we don't, planet might not last much longer. This thing we're talking about, this mechanism of the ego and this way to control things and this constant thinking, that is the thing that is driving us off the edge of a cliff in this world. And if we don't fix that on the individual level, there might not be a lot of time left. I'm actually quite optimistic. I think that things will end up eventually working out, but I think that we're probably going to go through some pretty rough stuff if we don't get our act together soon. But you can't make everyone do it. It's on the individual level. But fortunately, infinite intelligence has an infinite amount of resources to spend an infinite amount of time on every individual, uh, custom tailoring their experience to kind of force them out of the ego, to force them towards this more centered, peaceful, present state of being. So, not to sound like the harbinger of doom here, but it's about time we all kind of get our act together here spiritually for real, and not just wear chakra t-shirts and carry crystals in your pocket and talk about your spiritual experiences and tell everybody about how super spiritual you are. Not that I'm saying you do that, obviously, but we've all met those people. And anyways, kind of went off on a tangent there. So let's pull a few more cards. All right, so let's shuffle up these cards a little and see what else comes up here. If you're enjoying this reading, be sure to leave a comment, hit the like, subscribe button, all that stuff. Helps me out a lot. So I would really like to continue doing readings my way this way and stop working for other people who keep trying to turn this into something that it's not and sort of strip it of all of its value so that it can make as much money as possible. Anyways, I digress. Two of Wands again, the Tower again, Six of Cups again. Okay, maybe I didn't shuffle great, but it doesn't really matter because what comes up is what's meant to come up comes up, and it's kind of just reiterating the same thing, like this desire to dominate your reality, dominate the people around you. This sort of. I mean, look at him. He's ready to conquer. That is being destroyed, and that can be a very humbling experience when the universe starts to show you, actually, look, human, I'm a lot bigger than you are, and you've had this illusion of control so far because I've allowed it, and now it's time to recognize that uh, even though you are a being of consciousness and you are technically manifesting your own reality, there is a higher part of you that's responsible for that, the higher self. You could call it God, you could call it the universe, you could call it the holy guardian angel, the higher self. All these different terms kind of describe the same thing. It is the intelligence. It's like the intelligence of you that did not manifest into physical manifestation. It is the intelligence that makes the world happen, your reality happen. It chooses how to show you things, what to show you, and it is ultimately you. It is ultimately a part of you, but it's not the you that you think you are. It's the higher part of you that is infinite intelligence. And we have the experience of being an individual and walking around in a world that seems to be governed by some kind of external higher power. It's not quite accurate, though. It's really all just you. It's all you and the higher self are one thing, but we have a relative experience of having an ego. Ego in the Freudian sense of having a sense of a individual experience of life. Not there's that word ego gets thrown around a lot, and it gets kind of confusing because it can mean different things depending on who's saying it. There's the ego as far as like your overall structure of being an individual and experiencing things from a relative perspective. When we talk about getting rid of the ego, that's not what we're talking about. We're not getting rid of that. You can't get rid of that. Why would you want to get rid of that? It's a necessary part of what we are. But the ego, in the Eckhart Tolle sort of sense of like the conditioned mind entity, that's the ego that needs to go away. That's the ego that's being sort of beaten down and kind of grinded into a fine dust by the universe slowly over time and more as time goes on, as you may find. Um, but ultimately, this is healing. It doesn't feel like it in the moment. When you're going through it, it doesn't feel like healing. It feels like, why is the universe torturing me? Well, it's not torturing you, but it kind of can feel like it sometimes. Um, Anyways, I know this is kind of an extreme reading, but you know, I gotta say what comes up, or else I feel like I'm kind of cheating myself. So it is what it is. You can take it or leave it, like it or don't. Hope you do. If you do, you can send me a message. All my information is down below. We can get into a private reading. Until then, take care.